One. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 20 of the Hungry People Podcast, the hungriest podcast on the East Coast, we'll say. Let's go with that, just like we did last time. I'm here with my co-host, AJ Divka, and he's looking fresh to death. And we have a special guest today, Eli from the FreeMelon Society. It's going to be an awesome talk. He's been a fruitarian for a little over 6 years, and he's ready to rock and roll. As you can tell, his energy is fired up, and we're ready to pop off here. AJ, take it away, brother.
Hey guys, so glad to be here with you both. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I know a lot of the people who follow me and that I interact with are going to be, they're stoked to see what we all have to discuss, as well as they gave me plenty of questions to ask Eli, sorry about that. But first, we're going to talk about our sponsors. So if you guys are interested at all in being around more community, if you feel as though this diet of fruits and vegetables and fresh food feels limiting, if it feels like you can't meet anyone, whether it's a potential partner, friends, a fitness group, keep in mind that each year there's an annual Woodstock Fruit Festival up in Diamond Point, New York. And MP and I go there. We were there this year. I've been there about 3 times now. And each year it seems to just get better and better. There's a variety of different sports and fruits and friends and all different things. So keep in mind, hungry people, when you're going to check out at Woodstock Fruit Festival, because you will save $100 if you use our code, Hungry People, capital H, capital P, and the link for the website's down below. And as well, listen, most of us have an ideal. We want to live in a certain way. We will have high standards in life, and we want to eat better, eat cleaner, have fresher air. But sometimes it can be difficult. Not everyone has the results of Eli, because I know we're going to get into his health and his journey and feeling great. And sometimes people don't know where to start. And supercells has been an unbelievable option for me, just because whether it's the perfumes or eating fatty food or people being around people that smoke, there's a lot of limitations when it comes to oxygen. So I make sure that I take supercells liquid oxygen. It's the only ingredient in there. You just take a little cap worth under your tongue for 30 seconds, and it immediately gets into your bloodstream. You can actually use this overnight just to keep all the oxygen in your brain, and you will actually notice you'll wake up feeling refreshed and renewed. I use it whenever I'm going to be in any kind of polluted area. I use it before bed, or if I've eaten some stuff that kind of has made my blood feel a little thicker and sticky. So keep in mind that there's a link down below for supercells as well. And now, thank you guys for your patience. We're going to get into it. Eli, like I said, when I announced that you were coming onto the podcast, I run a support group with Dan McDonald, and all the people in there who I put the video with you and Jillian in there. They were so stoked, and they're flooding me with questions, which is awesome. And I'm so happy to have you here. Actually, I first saw you on Jillian's YouTube channel, and I had never heard of you before. And I was like, holy crap, this guy, it's just your energy, man. There's something about it. I love the confidence, but I love the humbleness. And I want to welcome you to Hungry People, and I'm so glad for you to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If I could give everybody an extended virtual hug right now, I would, but the gestures. Thank you. That's so flattering. I really appreciate it. And first of all, I love the name of the podcast, Hungry People. It's perfect. It's perfect, yeah. Because for hungry people out there who want an excuse to just eat as much as you want, there's no better diet to do that than the diet that I'm on.
You're right.
If there's anything, fruit and leafy green vegetables, you can go nuts and you'll still be really healthy. So it seems in place.
And that's the thing, though. It's not only the diet, it's also just a mindset, being hungry to just better yourself and go after the things that you want in life. And I think that applies to you just as much as it would to anyone who could eat 10,000 calories of chicken wings. You have a real appetite, I can tell.
Yeah, it is a funny thing, and I won't go on too long because I'm sure that you have some questions and whatnot that you had planned. But it's a funny thing that with what happens to hunger when there's the more dietary reform in the direction of natural food and natural human food, it's interesting. The hunger seems to get tempered, and it's almost as if it doesn't even matter who, as long as you go through an initial period of adjustment. It's just something happens. I mean, I'm no different than anybody else. You know, I love food, but I love the whole spectrum, the whole gamut of all the cultural contraptions and all the different types of processed foods. And like, I was all over it. You know, I ate anything. Absolutely anything went. So, you know, I'm just as average in that sense. And to my surprise, once I started getting onto, you know, a better way of eating, a better modality of eating, I myself was quite shocked with how the sensation of hunger changed over not too long a time. And it wasn't an overly protracted period of time before I realized, oh my God, like, I'm not really experiencing hunger in the same way. I am not telling you that I do not experience hunger, period. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just a different sensation. It's just like there's this change. It's not a stabbing thing anymore that makes you irascible and just compels you to just shovel anything in. It's a different thing. It's just this kind of calm, peaceful feeling of a suggestion of emptiness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and
where, you know what I mean, where you can satisfy it at the moment or not, and you're still fine. You know, your equanimity is still unbalanced. And then you know, when you feel that signal, then you go and you satisfy it in a good way. And then anyhow, so it's just an interesting thing.
yeah,
Go ahead.
To me, when you're explaining it, it sounds like you're not irritated 24/7 to have to shove something in your mouth. I mean, that sounds freeing.
Yeah. Very, very liberating. Very, very liberating in so many different ways. Yeah, liberating in the sense of, no, go ahead.
Yeah, just because I feel as though food is amazing. It tastes amazing, and we all want to experience that type of pleasure. But I know for a fact the people watching, they get caught up in a little, you know, prison where it's just like food is on their mind all the time. You know, their business suffers, their mental health suffers, their sleep suffers, and it's like this overstimulation where your nerves are just too fried. And there's a certain type of peace that comes with having some discipline and control and structure around the way you eat, so that you can actually live your life and let it be the fuel of your life versus it being your actual life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it right. Just liberating. There's a freedom associated with cutting off very strong dependencies on food. Now, you can generalize that to anything in life. The second you cut off strong dependencies on something, whether it's food, whether it's job, whether it's this, whether it's that, and you internalize that dependence or that independence, what you gain is a level of freedom, closer and closer and closer and closer to absolute freedom, right? Whatever that would look like in terms of our human existence here. But yeah, the second you do that, you know, you eliminate that needy dependence, you achieve another level of a freedom that is food for the soul, if I had to encapsulate it in a way. And yeah, no, and I've definitely experienced that. You know, I noticed how my thinking changed, my attitude changed. When I say attitude, I don't mean I was running around picking fights and kicking people in the nuts for no reason. I'm just saying, you know, your general attitude. The calm that comes over you. You're less excitable, particularly because there are less or no stimulants coming into the body from the diet, so you don't have all of these nervous excitation inducing agents, you know, running the system. So yeah. You know, that helps on a purely mechanical level. You know?
Yeah, Eli, do us a favor. Just if you can bring us back to, I don't know how far you want to go back, but as far as that feels relevant to how you kind of started to change your diet, did you have any health issues coming into it? Could you start from the beginning for people that don't know anything about you? Because I did start watching some of your YouTube videos, but I don't really know your story there.
Right. Okay. So if we're going to go back that far, the world was in its infancy. There weren't any animals on the planet yet. No, I'm kidding. No, it's too far. For me, when I started, I was coming from. I started as a plant-based eater. So I started as a vegan. So I was an anything goes, riffraff, treat your body as an amusement park eater for many years. In what was it? 2012 or so. That's when I started to make some changes, and I went vegan. So I was getting onto some different types of fasting. I would do weekly fasts. So every single weekend, without fail, cut out the food on Friday night, and then pick up again on Sunday morning-ish, early afternoon-ish. So, about a 36-hour
water fasting?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Water fasting every weekend without fail. And I did that for many years, all throughout the time that I was considered just a plant-based eater, like a vegan.
Wow.
And then, And
wait,
then,
can I ask why you did that?
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question, because a lot of the time it's almost like people need some sort of health calamity to bolster them into a new lifestyle. I was lucky. I was just a very curious, independent investigator, right? I just liked reading. I liked to broaden my understanding, just learn about the world that I'm in. So it was just reading books, essentially. And now I also did have, it's not that they really disrupted my lifestyle too much, but I did have some, health irritations. I was primarily chronic mucus, just always with tissue, chronic sinusitis. I had allergies, I had allergies as a kid, and couldn't figure out how to get rid of them or why, I would have this sensitivity to stuff. Like, it just, you'd see other people. Cats and horses were primarily my allergies. So I see people riding horses and playing with cats, and I'm like, well, what the heck, man? I mean, why do I react to this in such a weird way? So little irritations like that. Okay, occasional cold sore, some dry skin, that kind of thing, right? So nothing horribly life altering, but enough that it was making me question, what is it that I'm doing that is making my body respond in this way. Okay, so then started with the plant-based thing, and then I did that for a number of years. But those health complications, they never really dissipated, at least to my satisfaction. And so that left me again very curious, right? Very confounded. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing it all right. Like, what is going on? I'm having a healthy plant-based diet. I've eliminated a lot of the landmines. So I eliminated, wheat. So no wheat products, any other gluten grains, and of course, all meat and all dairy. I still did include cooked foods. Any plant-based cooked food was fair game. Any oil was fair game. No, that's a lie. Sorry. Coconut oil, olive oil. I didn't do canola oil and some of those processed, like soybean oil. I didn't do any of that. So coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil. Those are pretty much the only oils that I ever used. So that was the extent of my diet. And then, the regular things, cooked, quinoa, buckwheats, lots of veggies, lots of greens, fruits here and there, like apples, so a pretty healthy diet, right? Pretty healthy.
Totally.
And so other than those slight irritations, you felt pretty good though?
I did, yes. Yeah, I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good.
And were you an athlete?
Yes. I've always been an athlete. That sounded really arrogant.
No, it's great.
I've always been interested in athletics and movements. Okay, so that's always been a childhood fascination. Probably brought on by too many comic books and too many action movies. Okay, so I'm wearing a Daredevil shirt right now. So so that was always something that I liked. So I picked up gymnastics fairly early, martial arts when I was young. So gymnastics, taekwondo, and Muay Thai were the three kind of primary disciplines that gave me, yeah,
No, I'm not good at that stuff.
Yeah, I don't believe you. But yeah, those three disciplines were yeah, kind of my foundation. And then I did lots of other things on top of that.
Nice.
So I was always, so as a gymnast, I was never competitive, but I never stopped doing gymnastics, like to this very day, from the time I started when I was maybe, I don't know, 10, 11 or so.
Nice.
So that activity, it always helped me in fitness and general health, because you can't be fit without getting some level of general constitutional health. They go hand in hand, right?
Totally.
Right.
It's just that, yeah, to get to really get other levels, like higher levels of health, then all of a sudden now the diet needs to start corresponding in some degree.
Right.
So I was always healthy, but it's just that, yeah, these little irritations, I couldn't rationalize how they were still afflicting, and so that's when I started picking up on, the fruitarian lifestyle, or at least the raw food lifestyle. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this makes total sense. I mean, I've been under the assumption that cooking my food is just totally normal, but my goodness, no other organism on planet Earth does this. So is this just a marketing thing, a cultural thing that I've been sold in order to satisfy, a demand for the market? Like what is it? Why anyway, so just going down that rabbit hole. Do I believe? Yes. I feel that there's a vast majority of what we're told in dietary culture is designed to support a massive, massive multi-billion-dollar food industry that thrives off of your choices as a consumer. So, good luck going to the average restaurant or a sporting event or whatever, anything. You're always going to be given foods that make good commodities, not necessarily food that makes for optimal human health. Right? You're always getting stuff that stacks well on shelves, that stores well, that is ridiculously stimulating, so as to incentivize you to come back and get more. So you're always going to have this in the world that's around us. And so I started to interpret it as a personal insult that I'd been so thoroughly fooled over all this time. And then when I started making changes, then all of a sudden, like drastic changes in my life, my appearance, my health, my joints, my muscles, like everything just started really drastically changing. And so then I interpreted that irrevocably as, okay, I might be doing something right. And so I just kept going with that, feeling the feeling of the liberation from the kitchen, from the tyranny of the kitchen, and having to plan ahead and prepare and spend whatever inordinate amount of time, concocting some way to disguise the real taste of food in the kitchen, right? Adding flavor, okay, all this stuff. So I now no longer had to do this. I just come home, just smash in a cantaloupe and start eating. It's so simple that I fell in love with it, and nice. And haven't looked back since.
So how'd you go ahead, AJ?
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
I was gonna say, how'd you come across the raw vegan or fruitarian lifestyle?
That's exactly what I don't want to say.
Oh, yeah. Because I don't want to say, like, I hate saying diet, but like I guess what you actually eat is your diet essentially. But like people will go on diets, and so I would rather present it as a lifestyle. So how did you come across this lifestyle?
At first, it was just some general health books. I think one of my original influential books was Natural Cures by what's that guy's name? Kevin Trudeau. I think that was the book. And so that introduced me to just the concept that there was a way to rid yourself of illnesses and diseases. Like they're not necessary. They're just conditions that you bring upon yourself, whether you're aware of the reasons why or not. Right. So I'm like, oh, okay. So being sick is not just something that happens by luck of the draw. Right. So I started with that. And later on, skipping ahead, a bit of reading, but skipping ahead, Arnold Ehret's books were very, very helpful. The Mucusless Diet Healing System. Actually, I just did an interview with Professor Spira,
Oh, did
Great.
you?
Yeah, we had a good time. Talked about a lot of stuff, and so
That's
that
great.
book was very helpful and influential. But then what I did was I just rated the bibliography. So reading that book, it turned me on to the existence of the natural hygiene movement that existed from the early 1800s on.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I just took a look at the bibliography and then just went, okay, buy this book, and just went down the list and started going down that rabbit hole and seeing all of these amazing hygienists and picking up all of these ideas on just how simple and how natural and how intuitive diet really was. And from there, it was just kind of a snowball effect. And then I started combining that with all the other research that I'd been doing about the world, the nature of the world, history, the origin of institutions, the origin of social movements, how social engineering works, how propaganda works, what is a secret society, what is, how does this all fit into the grand scheme of what I'm learning? So, I'm starting to put dots together and okay, there's smokes, this is overwhelming. There's something happening here where there's some force, some network of individuals that is laboring tooth and nail to divorce humanity from the elements that uplift humanity. And this has been happening for hundreds and thousands of years. And so I'm starting to put all of this together and putting in together, also discovering spirituality, spiritual science, natural science, the actual mechanics that govern non-physical reality and how they are just as real as the shirt on my body, as the bookcase, as the this, as the that, just as real, just not perceptible. No one needs convincing about this. We live in a world of Wi-Fi. It's all around you. It's smacking me in the face right now, but I can't do anything with it unless I have a way to decode that information stream. But the information stream exists. It's there. Spirituality is no different. It's an information field that's all around us. I know I'm drifting a little bit, but
no, it's all good.
It's everywhere, and it works on very, very specific, particular, unshakable, unwavering law. Just like the laws that govern gravity, like the laws that govern the freezing of water, like the laws that govern electricity. So I'm being exposed to all of these natural principles and laws that you can do two things. You can either recognize that they exist, right? You can recognize that you are bound to them regardless of what your choice in the matter. You don't have a choice. You're bound to the laws of physicality, whether you want it or not. The choice you make is whether you choose to align yourself with them or not. And that hit me like a freight train on steroids after being galvanized into action by a sufficiently loud sound. I don't know. But yeah, so it hit me hard, and I started making the changes, and I just started noticing these wonderful things happen in my life, and so that's nice. Really how that goes with that. Yeah.
So Eli, from what I'm gathering, you sound more like a self-taught type of person. Like you started going through these books and this material. Did you kind of gravitate towards some kind of mentorship or some kind of program that really spoke to you? Or are you taking pieces of all of this stuff and formulating your own plan?
Yeah. Yes. To simply answer your question, yes. It was more just me slowly over time piecing together dot after dot after dot after dot, and connecting how all of the elements of life as we know it, they're all related to one another. And it was, I went to school, I went to university. I have a kinesiology degree and graduated nice. From kinesiology and health sciences at York. But it didn't take me very long while I was in university to realize and recognize that what I was learning, I wasn't learning anything that really mattered in life. What I mean, I was learning data points, right? I was learning, elements of health, elements of, okay, humerus is located here, my shin is, that kind of thing. So I felt myself unsatisfied as someone claims to be interested in health and wellness and fitness and whatnot. I wasn't getting the what really mattered in that field. And so I guess that realization hit me that I'm actually kind of stupid. I don't like this. So
I don't think you're stupid at all. He sounds super intelligent. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't consider that to be my reality yet, but maybe time I can claim myself to be an intelligent. But so anyway, it was just that realization. Really didn't know a lot, even though I was in school and university, and I just set about changing it. And so it was very much a self-taught thing.
Wow.
Okay.
Good
so
for you.
There wasn't like a specific person or anything that you really gravitated towards? Because just to throw a few names out there's like John Rose, Robert Morse, Dan McDonald, Fully Raw Christina, like all these people I'm sure
Lou
you're
Corona.
familiar with. Lou Corona.
Yeah.
And it's kind
Durian
of like
Rider.
we're that next generation, I
Right.
feel like.
Right.
But was there anyone that you did kind of gravitate towards, or not really? Or any kind of books?
No books.
Like
yes.
80-10-10 and things like that?
Books and authors, yes. But as for YouTubers, no, I didn't know any YouTubers that were.
Wow.
I didn't have anyone to really guide me through this, save for the books that I was reading.
That can be really limiting in a sense, because you're like, you could have less info, but at the same time, you get to develop your own intuition with it, which probably kept you out of a lot of the traps of like, I need to eat 5,000 calories of fruit, or, eating is bad. We need to limit eating as much as possible, when really, I think what you've mastered is being able to listen to yourself. Do you think that's fair?
I think that is fair. I didn't, as much as I had lots of to keep me satiated. I wasn't getting bogged down with divergent and discordant opinions, just flying at me. Not to say that there's nonsense out there coming at you in the internet world. There's a lot of really good solid information, but I guess it was how do I describe that?
Well, there's a huge difference between reading the same info in a book versus someone telling you and putting their own spin on it, their own pressure and their own social aspect. Like you were saying, like we have all these things like social cues and pressures and etc. You're still an individual when you're reading it, whereas interacting with another person, even if it is watching them, it's a completely different energy field, I think.
True. Yeah, true. And it feels like you are doing the work, right? When it's your investigation, your note taking, and
you're not afraid to fail. If you fail, it's like this thing you get to experience yourself. Whereas if you're watching someone and you're trying to be like them and it's like you kind of hurt your ego, you hurt your self-esteem. It's just more of like a dynamic to it.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned 80-10-10. I didn't read 80-10-10 until I was well into my fruitarian lifestyle. Like I think it was 2 years in already, and then I picked up on it. So I didn't have that to guide me. But I mean, in terms of what I had understood, you didn't really need much. The concept was just so bloody simple that once I really picked up on the concept of the natural diet, the concept of the species-specific human diet, and that this is what every organism, this is what every life form does. They simply respond to the natural intuition programmed in by natural intelligence in the body. And so getting onto that, it was like, for me, it wasn't too difficult to avoid all of the other things that I used to eat, because the way it was framed in my mind was there are no other options, right? Just like a hummingbird is never ever going to decide that rabbit is going to be the meal for the day. That will never happen, okay? Ever. Because why? Because it simply doesn't have a choice. The only choice can you
imagine like a hummingbird trying to kill a rabbit?
Probably find it on a sci-fi channel.
Yeah, yeah. It would look absolutely preposterous, right? And so all species have these like natural limitations. You're never going to get a rhino that tries to impregnate a bluefin tuna or something. These things will never happen. So
let's just keep giving examples.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
I'm gonna Google that right after this. It's probably someone probably tried to make it happen.
Yeah.
Some sick.
For everyone listening, this is a very professional conversation going on right here.
It is. It is.
It's a refreshing conversation.
No, okay. But seriously, I mean, yeah. So knowing that these in nature, these choices, they just animals and species and organisms, they just don't have the luxury of making these choices to accommodate themselves with nutrients and nutrition that is way out of their league. So all I did was I harmonized with that. I'm like, okay, if this is way out of my league, then it's just not an option. Stuck with what was an option that I knew would be an option for my particular human physiological design, and I just stuck with it, right? For cooking oils and whatnot, like I could rationalize in my head, okay, there is absolutely no way that I could suck the oil out of some soybeans, right, and do something with, there's no way that this could happen, right? There's no way I could manipulate a soybean with my equipment here as a human, and do anything constructive with that. But I could just go and pick a pear and eat it and make a meal out of it and be very satisfied. And so this just made undeniably perfect sense in my head. Mm-hmm. And I just ran with it, essentially.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the food items that we add, the oils and whatever, anything else, it's just to enhance the food. But I mean, if you actually have delicious, juicy, ripe fruit, I mean, it really is amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just agreeing
okay.
Agreeing with you.
Yeah. And then, yes, I wanted to ask you, I mean, there's a lot of different countries in this world, and some countries and some places might not get the best quality fruit or the best quality food in general. So just what are your thoughts on that? And do you have any recommendations for those kind of countries and how they could maybe enhance their diet in some way?
Yes. Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because that's something that naturally I'd set myself up to be, hit with that question very often. It's like, okay, well, what do you make of the person who's here, living there? How would they be able to accommodate a lifestyle like this? And the short answer is sometimes you can't. Just flat out. If I'm a human being, no, I won't use me as an example. Let's use a hyena. Let's say a hyena makes the decision, you know what? I'm gonna move to outer space, okay? And I'm gonna try and make a living in outer space. That would be a silly move for the hyena to make, because it's taken itself out of its natural habitat where its food does exist, and it's gone to a new location where those options are no longer available. Mm-hmm. So now the hyena might have to say, oh, okay, well, how it's surviving in space is beyond me. Don't just bear with me for a second. It might have to just say, okay, well, space dust is going to be my new meal. Asteroid, rock, riffraff, rock, whatever. I don't know. Who cares? So the point is, in terms of organisms on planet Earth, none of these organisms will migrate out of their natural habitat for a good reason, right? They will always stay in their natural habitat because that's how they have to live, and they do not have a choice in this matter. Mm-hmm. Now, with humans, we have an evolved consciousness. We have an evolved ego. We have the ability to recognize patterns in the environment and make decisions on those patterns. We have all these amazing cognitive features, characteristics that the other animals don't have. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to find ways to navigate around our physiological limitations, right? Whereas other animals don't have that ability, and thus they don't experience the same types of illnesses and diseases that humans do, right? It's only us that have the ability to go out of our natural habitat and then live some outrageous, inhospitable location. So getting back to your question, if you're a human tribe living in the desert, your physiology has not changed. You are still a human of Earth. You still have a frugivorous design. This will never change, ever. But surviving is more important. So you simply do what you have to do to survive, knowing that what you are actually optimally designed to eat is the simple fruits of the trees, the berries, the simple leafy greens. These are what you thrive on. These are what human food is. So as close as you can come to as possible, that's what you do, right? If I'm in the desert and all I can find are scorpions, well, be it. Scorpions are the new diet for me because there's just nothing else. So, but of course we're tropical species, right? Mm-hmm. We are a tropical species. We can't go naked and survive I'm in Canada right now. If I go outside and just take all my clothes off and just try to survive, it's not going to work. I'm going to freeze, right? There's no food growing everywhere. It just doesn't work, right?
Right.
But I could conceivably do that if I were in a climate, in a habitat that did allow me to be without clothes, that I could be sustained in the place, right? I could find my food, all that. So, and that's just a very, very clear cue to me, at least, what we're designed to do, where we're designed to live. And when you migrate outside of that, the answer is you just do what you can, knowing what's optimal. And the closer you come, in that dietary hierarchy to fruits and vegetables, the better the health. Right, the better the health becomes.
This is such an important topic that I think that all of us could expand on further at some point, or us as individuals, because I think it goes back to, like I was saying, with social media and us seeing how certain people have these standards that they're living by, and someone could be inspired to do so and they want to live in that certain way, but they aren't in the same circumstances. They don't have the same. They may be a human species, but they don't have the same genetics or the same organ function or the same hormones or the same metabolism or all these factors. So, if I'm watching this person and I want to emulate what they're doing and I'm failing and I feel as though I'm doing something wrong, when really it's just the wrong approach in the way that it's being done. Right. And the reason why I think it's important is because, the finances that come in, or the quality of the soil, or the area in the world that you're in, you have to take that into account. Because when people are speaking and giving general recommendations, like, I love green juice, I think people should drink green juice. But if you're spending, $20 a day on green juice and you can't afford the rest of your food, then it's not optimal for you to use the green juice necessarily, or the supplements, or some type of, fitness program that you want to do. So you really have to understand that. Take yourself as an individual into consideration. And like Eli said, you have to do the best with what you have. And sometimes that is it's always to listen to yourself, but sometimes it's to realize that the other person doesn't have all the information that you have about yourself. So they probably are missing a few target key points when it comes to what the best outcome for you will be. And I think the more that we can be open and honest and empathetic towards each other, and realize that each of us has their own struggles and triumphs, we can start to minimize that gap, because people will eat fruit, fall off, eat meat, or they'll, do nothing but meat and flip over here and tell you this person to fuck off. And everyone's just all over the place, and everyone's, in that process, they're unhappy. They're struggling, they want consistency. They want to feel good consistently. No one's making these choices because they're trying to screw their life up, in a sense. They don't want to be, they don't want to be anorexic. They don't want to have digestive issues. We need to have more adult conversations about how can we minimize the negatives, but still give ourselves the best chances of succeeding. And this just encapsulates what I think the way that each of us is trying to live.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very well said. That's very well said. And I completely agree. We have to take it. And I think all of us are guilty of this from time to time, where it's easier to make blanket generalizations and recommendations for a lot of people. And depending on what you're talking about, okay, obviously there's context. Depending on what you're talking about, then that can apply. But then there's a lot of times where this is such an individual approach. It's funny. We're all human. We all have the same general blueprint, general physiological design. But on top of that design is built several layers of variables and factors of how the body over time has been constituted, from how your parents lived, how their parents lived, and how their genetic response has been over that time. And then finally you come along, and then how you've eaten, you've lived, your mental constitution. What things are you interpreting from the environment that give you a stress and not the other person? It's just this ridiculously long list of variables that are very important to at least acknowledge when we're talking about how do you structure a lifestyle, an eating plan. So I think that's very important that you bring that up and mention it, so that people are not plagued with guilt when they try something and it doesn't immediately work right away. And then they feel like they've let themselves down. They feel that they've done something wrong. And they just start this kind of cyclone of negativity where it's just like, this is the approach helps. Sometimes it can be very much detective work, right? You really have to investigate. Okay, all right, what is happening here? There's a bit of that work that goes into it, especially when something is not healing or whatnot, that you don't know why. Kind of like my situation when I didn't really know, I couldn't figure out why am I still getting all this mucus congestion when I'm eating exactly as I'm supposed to do, as a conventional vegan, right? And still having a lot of my food combinations were just appalling. It would be
Give us an example.
Anything goes in the bowl at the same time. So concentrated fats, concentrated proteins, this, that, lots of water content, just everything. So I would eat a bog, and then inevitably my body would just look up at what was coming down the pipe and just like, Eli, what the hell is this? So yeah, there's all these things that you got to take into consideration when you're going through a lifestyle change, and taking it slowly. Transition is very important. Let your body kind of acclimatize and get accustomed to these gradual changes that you're making. I'm not saying that a harsh, drastic change is impossible. It has worked for many people, especially people who are like, when they're on the brink of just health calamity, where they have to make this drastic change, otherwise it's going to be too late. Yeah, sometimes like the putting on the brakes and just making a harsh change, sometimes that does work, because the motivation is so strong that it tends to override all of the other riffraff. And that's so important. But then there's the other end where you're not in that situation, where maybe you do have to make a more gradual change to alleviate whatever the stress is and the worries and the guilt and all this kind of stuff. So anyhow, yeah, that's really important to bring to the discussion, obviously.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for that. I wanted to ask, so I think you said on the interview with Jillian that you were on a 2-day dry fast and you were like, oh, no one would even know unless I told you. And I just told you. So, or something like that. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about fasting and just like what you eat in a day and how you time your meals and whatnot. So if you just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And
It's
in addition to that, since it's similar to what you're about to discuss, if you could touch on maintaining body weight, because even doing all this
cool.
dry fasting and minimal eating and clean eating and fruits and naturally lower calories because they're full of water, you seem to maintain very good weight, good energy, fitness. So if you could kind of like dive into all of that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I'll start with just how I structure my day, and then I'll talk about that right after. Try
If
and
you
make
could
this
talk
as
about sleep
concise as
too, it'd
possible.
be great.
Sleep. Okay, yeah, no problem.
Like how much you sleep at night.
Yeah. All right. So, with my day, I'm not too regimented on when I eat. The timing of my meals is not as important. What's more important for me is what I'm eating. So I almost never stray from what I know is best for me. But generally how it works out is a meal around just afternoon time, or even slightly before, and maybe something a bit later on around 4 or 5 o'clock. I usually like to end my eating by 5 o'clock or earlier. Today, for example, it just so happened that it was around 3:30 that I had my last meal, and I won't eat again until tomorrow at this similar time, early afternoon or late morning. What I'm eating is typically a mono fruit meal of whatever variety, of whatever is either cheap, on clearance, in season, whatever. As long as it's a fruit, as long as it's that class, then I'm happy eating it as a mono meal. So melons are great. I eat lots of melons. So whether it's a cantaloupe or a watermelon, or whether it's a honeydew, that very often turns into the first thing that I eat for the day. Just honestly, pick a fruit. That's a meal for me. So whether it's pears, whether it's oranges or clementine.
I heard you say
whether
blueberries you had as a meal. So does that look like a lot of blueberries? Is that like a little pint of blueberries?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah. So when I say pick a fruit and eat that as a meal, so recognize that because I'm not eating anything else, the fruit turns into a meal. So if I'm eating blueberries, you better believe I'm eating, bloody blueberries. It'll be a bowl of blueberries, right? And I'll just eat that. Way more than someone would typically eat from, as just a blueberry meal. But it's not a dressing. It's not a dessert. That is the meal. Every single meal is dessert for me. So, yeah. So let's say it's pears. I like pears. A pear meal is like 5-6 pears. If it's mangoes, it's 5-6 mangoes maybe. No, the mangoes are a bit more filling. Like 4 mangoes is a great meal. If it's durian, if I'm allergic, I'll have a durian. I'll eat like half of a watermelon, in a meal. So it's a mono meal almost all the time, and in a quantity that is fit to be considered a meal. It's I'm not pecking like a bird at just a couple of pieces of blueberry and or a couple little pieces of strawberry. No. If I'm gonna eat something, I'm eating it, right, as a meal in a good quantity. That's what I eat. Have I left anything out? Or do you have any questions about the what? Just so I
Do you
don't
like
drift off.
salads at all, or vegetables too, or do you only do fruit?
Yes. Okay. So if I would say that I have my menu, and on my menu are fruits, leafy greens, and nuts and seeds. I make the choice to eat fruits by far more often than not, like 99% of the time. The leafy greens, so the salads, simple salads. I recently had a salad. Well, I don't even know if you want to call it a salad. Tomatoes and celery. So just tomatoes and celery, right? So a little bit of vegetable and then some fruit. So nice. Very simple salads, right? Leafy greens as well. So, typically a lettuce. When I say salad, I'm usually referring to just lettuce and then some other simple combination. Avocado and lettuce and tomato. Lettuce, some sprouts, and something else, whatever, cut up apple chunks, simple salads. So that's my menu: fruit, leafy greens, and nuts. I choose the fruits far more often than any other choice. Nuts are the least frequent choice that I make. Very, 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 very rarely. And so that's it. So I am not opposed to raw leafy green vegetables. It's on my menu. I recommend them for people who feel like eating them. There's no problems with that with those choices. That I personally don't make those choices often. And I don't make those choices often because what I'm doing is I'm aligning myself with the natural sensitivities that I know exist. I absolutely know that a bowl full of arugula will be absolutely horrible to eat for me. Like, it will. Nobody makes this choice. Nobody eats a massive bowl of, when I say just arugula, no oils, no vinegars, no other fruits, no other flavors, right? Nobody is doing this and being satisfied. Okay, it's not going to happen.
Add some salt and sugar and you're good. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And people will tell me this when people ask. It's like, yeah, no, I love whatever. Let's just say arugula, and then I'm like, tell me how you eat your arugula, and then they'll tell me, and I'm like, exactly. See, you have to disguise the taste of your arugula in some way. But when you're harmonizing with your natural sensitivities, what I'm eating for exclusively the flavor that nature has prepared for that thing to be received in my particular oral physiology, right? In that pleasurable way. So I can eat apples and bananas as a meal, but I can't really do that with the greens, right? They turn more. What we're doing with the greens is we're enjoying the texture, right? The crunch, the satisfying crunch. It's like you're doing work, the satisfying crunch, but we want other flavors to go along with it so that we're not just taking in the flavor of just big naked greens, because the truth of the matter is humans are not herbivores. Other herbivores have no problem doing this, but when you're not an herbivore, when you're more of a fruit eater, your taste buds are geared to, more to the fruit side of the family. Okay, so that's the how or the what I'm eating. Mm-hmm. And your other question was maintaining healthy weight, or
because
maintaining my weight. Yeah,
it's probably the most common thing that you would see in the fruit-based community, raw vegan community, is how really skinny people get and how hard it is to maintain muscle mass. And gain weight is probably the hardest part of all that. You can maintain usually easier than you can gain. So what are your like thoughts on that? Is it like because people need to cleanse to a certain amount? Is it because everyone, could you dive into that a little bit? I would love your understanding.
Yeah, of course. Yes. And this is where I become a little bit of everybody's enemy, because your body, it has a particular place where it naturally wants to be. I'm sure you guys have come across some literature whereby they tell you that the average person carries around an additional 15 pounds, maybe even more, of weight that has nothing to do with their tissues. It's literally just junk, that undigested stuff that is sitting in the colon, sitting in the GI tract, trapped with water that's being, from salts and whatnot. So a combination of retaining fluids and junk in the system that's adding weight to the body. Okay, so how do you maintain the weight? The first thing to I think what we have to do is we just have to get straight what is it that we want from the dietary change. Okay, what's important? Okay, is health and cleanliness the goal? Is that actually the goal? Or is the aesthetics that we've been told are proper aesthetic that the goal? And I had to really release this because I was always I was never a big guy. I was always really lean and defined, but I was a lot bigger than you see me now. Like I used to walk around at about 186 or so, 185. So right now I'm about 165, maybe slightly more, slightly less. And so I had to accept that the diet that I'm on right now, the diet that I'm choosing to go on, is a naturally detoxifying, is a naturally cleansing diet. Weight loss is going to happen whether I want that, whether I choose that or not, right? Whatever my subjective beliefs are, that is going to happen. And so I had to release any ego that I had with maintaining a big physique, because I recognized that nature's going to do what she's going to do in an attempt to clean me out. So I kind of had to, put that part of me on hold. Okay, so the good news is that when you're on a natural human diet for a sufficient amount of time, your body will cleanse you out and take you down to the place where it feels a balance, where it feels an equilibrium that it enjoys, and that it says this is good for you. And when it gets to that point, it's, as long as you stay on that lifestyle, it will be very difficult to budge in almost either direction, which is a good thing if health and cleansing and cleanliness is the goal, right? Is what your motivation is. Now, where I become a little bit of the enemy is that let's say you're a professional football player. You want to be very, very clean and healthy, and you're a linebacker. And then you come to me and say, okay, I want to be very healthy and clean. I don't want to lose weight. What do I do? And then my reaction is, I can't help you. Like, I'm the wrong person to come and ask for help, because my approach doesn't have anything to do with our subjective wants and desires about our job, I'm avoiding all of this. And my approach is simply, or not simply, but I'm zeroing in on the highest and obvious health and cleanliness, I should say, cleanliness of the internal body, and liberation of internal energies that allow for spiritual unfoldment. Okay, this is my approach. And so what the diet does to your body in order to get there, going to happen. Now, so maintaining weight, the weight that you put on from an old encumbering diet, you have to be willing to accept that this is going to change, because that's just how nature has set it up. There's nothing we can do about that. Okay, absolutely nothing. So losing some weight or having a loss of the familiar look that you're always accustomed to, so you expect a change there, but also expect that in time you will be brought to a good level where you're balanced. Okay, so for me, you mentioned that I was on the dry fast. Okay, so dry fast or whatnot. Even if I do a dry fast of several days, water fast of several days, my body weight just doesn't budge. Yeah, you might drop a little bit while you're on the cleanse, but then right back at it once you start eating. Then you're always hovering in this perfect range that your body says this is your weight, and it doesn't change, and it's amazing, right? It's absolutely fantastic. Putting on weight. Okay, so I'll get to this, and then I'll get to some of the sleep. You asked about some sleep. So putting on weight on the diet that I'm on, or on a natural human diet, this is definitely possible. Okay, it will be more of a function once the diet is very, very clean. Putting on weight is going to be more of a function of how you work out. Okay, so using heavy weights with an absurd amount of sets, not too many repetitions, certain movements, compound exercises, compound lifts. This is the kind of stuff that will help you to put on weight. If we're talking about muscular weight, right? If your goal is to be a sumo wrestler, then I'll just say, okay, well, screw everything I say and just eat whatever, right? Then you become a sumo wrestler, right? So that's not to knock sumo wrestlers. I don't know what the diet is. I'm assuming if you have to put on inordinate amounts of fat, then
right. We understand.
Eat whatever. Yeah, eat whatever.
Right.
Okay. So you can put on weight. It just will not be the same type of explosive weight gain that you would notice if what you're putting into your system is encumbering or is stifling, right? Or is hormone rich, like eating animal products and proteins and whatnot. Proteins. I mean, proteins in everything. The world is getting to me. But hormone-rich food, when you're loading yourself with literally growth hormones, yeah, you can expect your body to respond, right? Because it's literal hormones. It's no different than steroids, right? It's just these exogenous hormones and stimulants that are coming in, and yeah, the body responds. So when you're not getting that from the diet, what happens is the muscle growth, the weight gain that you do put on, it's a very clean weight. It's a dense muscular weight that is not excess water and excess this and just trapped lipids in the muscle tissue. It's not any of that. Now it's just this clean weight gain. So your weight gains will not be as explosive, right, on a clean diet, but they'll be more sustainable. They'll be a healthier type of weight, right? So yes, so it is possible. It's just more difficult. I'm a professional stuntman, so if a coordinator asks me, hey Eli, I need you to put on like 50 pounds, 20 pounds for, to double this guy, I would just have to be honest. And say, I don't know if that's possible. I can try. I'll put on whatever weight I can, but it might not be possible unless I eat 15 eggs in the morning, dunk down some salt, and you get it.
Yeah. Can we expand on the weight thing just a little more before we move on to sleep? Because
yeah.
I agree. I think that if you took, Dwayne Johnson and you put him on apples, he's not going to be happy with his results because he wants to maintain a certain type of muscle mass. But more for me, when I'm asking the question, what I'm thinking of is the people who are doing their best to eat well and stick with this type of diet. Yeah. And maybe they've done some cleansing, some grapes or some melons or some water fasting, and they've been sticking with it. They've been doing this type of thing for years. They're buying organic, but they really are looking and feeling malnourished. I mean, they're having teeth issues. Their face is gone. Those are more the people that I'm hopefully speaking for, where, is it that, let's say you have a guy or a woman or man, and they're eating a watermelon for breakfast and they're having 10, 15 bananas and they're still looking this way. In your eyes, is that more of like a detoxification type of issue? Or is it that they're not absorbing their sugars? So maybe it's a metabolism or hormone issue, right. Or maybe they just they need more food. Maybe they're doing too much fluids. I have a lot of thoughts myself about that, but I would love to know what you think.
Right. Yes. And this is where a little bit of that detective work comes in. It's starting to really go throughout your past history and just to check off things, just see, okay, this was an issue, this was something that I dealt with, what did this particular incident or experience do to me, and just making an account of everything that's gone. Okay, sometimes yes, it can be detoxing. I know that sounds, it sounds like a just dismissive, but sometimes it can be. Other times it might just be because we're making too harsh of a transition, or not enough. Sorry, I should say not enough of a transition, whereby the tissues have been really accustomed, especially if there's a lot of stimulation in the diet, okay, or stimulants in the diet. What can happen is over time you can have eroded your body's ability to efficiently absorb and to efficiently utilize what's coming in. If all of these stimuli coming from the outside. So then you transition in what you imagine to be slowly onto this new diet, but it takes an even more protracted period of time. And so one thing that the person could do is just scale back a little bit. So I've been on this clean diet for several months. All of a sudden I started to feel really uncomfortable and I started to notice symptoms. The teeth hurting and whatnot. Okay, so sometimes what you could do, you take a couple steps back, maybe introduce some mildly or some cooked foods, like very simple cooked foods back in for a day or two. See what that feels like, right? A day or two during the week. See what that feels like. Okay, gauge how you feel, gauge what the detox conditions are, gauge if they go away, and then come back to the all raw food diet and see what the difference is. So you go through some cycles, a little bit of a trial and error period. Sometimes it can be that a fast or a cleanse is a good way to kickstart a program. So let's say you're coming from a diet, a particular diet, an anything goes diet, the general cultural diet, and you make these changes in the absence of a good cleanse to kickstart things. Sometimes that can be an issue. Sometimes people need is a good either water fast or a juice cleanse or some other, or even a mono fruit cleanse. Like apple, you mentioned apples, like several days of apples, holy smokes, that can clean you out really, 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 really well. So sometimes what people need is a way to kickstart the new regime. And in the absence of that, the type of encumbrances that they run into when the good stuff starts coming in and starts running into all of these materials and all of these things in the body, sometimes that can cause a bit of a disturbance. In the mouth, we experience a lot of these tooth sensitivities because you can imagine after years and years and years of eating a certain way, there might be a lot of literal poisons and chemicals stuck in the mouth, in the tissue. So what does your body do? It's in trying to get rid of them. When they come to the surface, it's experienced the sensitivities. It could be things that they don't even think of telling you, like they have fillings in their teeth, right? And then you go on this new regime that's trying to detox, and it's running into a trickling deposit of either mercury. If you've got mercury fillings in your teeth, like this can be a problem, right? It's like counterproductive. So now your body's trying to get rid of stuff, but you've got these things in your teeth that are causing problems, and so you're always chasing your tail, type of thing. So there's these little things to consider. So this is what I mean when there's some detective work that needs to go into it, right? But I'd say to be safe, what you do is if you're experiencing extreme difficulty or extreme discomfort, then you always have to scale back, go back to some heavier, more dense foods that you're accustomed to eating, and then try again later. So it's like it's like if you want to get accustomed to being out in the cold, you might go for 3 minutes a day. That's too much, and so you scale it back, and then try only 2 minutes the next day, and then when you're a bit better, then okay, try the 3 minutes again. Oh, now a bit better. Okay, now I'll try for 4. Oh,
I have a funny story about that.
That kind of approach, right? Yeah. Anyway, so go ahead.
So me and my brother, I think it was last year, we started doing ice baths, kind of like Wim Hof style. Nice. And yeah, I've been doing Wim Hof for a while, but we started to do the ice baths, and we started off with like 20 pounds of ice in a cold bath for a minute. And then the next week, we did it once a week, then 3 minutes the next week, then 7. Then we graduate to more ice. So then it was 40 pounds, and then eventually it was 60 pounds. So I think, after a while I was doing 60 pounds of ice in the winter with the cold bath, and I worked my way up to it. And then MP came and stayed with me, and he just went and just did where I was at. And the first minute he's like, dude, there's no way I could do this. This is awful. And then after 2 minutes, he's like adjusted to it. He's like, I'm fine. I'll do the whole thing. He did the whole 7 minutes. So yeah, I think that awesome. I think graduating to it is the best approach. Yeah. And then you have these people who just can just do it. And it's like, pretty cool to see. Yeah.
And then, always have to consider there are going to be variables and influences and factors that are just beyond our ken, like beyond our understanding, right? There's some things that we just really will not know what is going in, what's at work that's making the transition a bit more difficult. So that's when it becomes very important to just really be gradual with it, so that the natural force of detoxification or purification, I should say, is slowly chipping away at what is not perfectly right in the system, rather than doing it all at once. And then the body tries to really rush these changes through, and in so cleansing, it's a bit of a disturbance, right? But you do it gradually enough so you don't notice. And I think I always mention that I think this was one of the advantages that I had in my development, where I didn't even know that I was being advantageous to myself in the future. So all of those years of being plant-based vegan, right? But of fasting as well. So I would religiously do these fasts every weekend, And then I would always do periodic cleansing of like 5-day fasts here and there, right? And so I think I was really setting myself up to do this lifestyle because I was getting in a lot of cleansing, even though, you know, at the time I wasn't there to make this change here.
You were sensitizing your system so that when you did put this
Yeah.
food in, it could be more utilized, which makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Are you familiar with the True North Health Clinic in Santa
Yeah.
Rosa? Yeah, and they always talk about like resensitizing your palate out of the pleasure trap by doing a few days on water or juice, and then you put some food in and you're like, holy crap, this tastes like the best thing I ever ate. Whereas before, if you ate an apple, you're like, this tastes like rusty water. Like, what am I even eating this for? Because you're used to all like thousands of milligrams of salt and sugar and all that kind of stuff. So I think that I agree with that. And I also think from what you were saying, doing that cleansing periodically reminded me of when I was talking with Jillian Berry, and she was saying how over the years she would do smoothies and do salads along with the wine and the pizzas and stuff. And I do think that having some of that integrity in your diet, that totally shifts your ability when you do transition compared to the people who never eat a vegetable ever, or they, you know, don't ever eat fruit unless it's, you know, fruit punch. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're eating it. Because like you said, you get hit with this wall of like crap. And I think that people, sometimes it is great. I think some people do need it. Sometimes they're at that brink of extinction and they do it, or they just feel great and they run with it. But, you know, forcing yourself to eat a certain way, forcing yourself to overtrain and exercise or to work like crazy. I mean, how many of us are forcing ourselves to go to bed? And this is a good transition, go to bed early or to, you know, force yourself to be around less stressful people, these things that have no negative consequences. And, you know, compared to just like all of a sudden jumping on some crazy bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. It's you sleep. That's a really important one as well. Obviously, you know, sleep being the most important restorer of energy that you have at your disposal as an organism on planet Earth, right? You can't escape this. If you're getting bad sleep or in lack of quality in your sleep, it's not going to work. You know, it affects every single thing: your digestion, your mood, your strength, your just name it. Sleep affects it. Okay, so what can happen with sleep is that, see, with digestion, we're talking about the most energetically expensive process in your body. There's almost nothing that's more expensive or demanding on your energy reserves than digestion, even though it might not feel like it, because this is taking place at an automatic level. It's kind of like the agency of nature's intelligence that's doing this work for you. I mean, can you imagine if you had to be consciously aware of how to digest your, oh my God, unimaginable. We're not at that level of conscious sophistication yet to consciously deal with our digestion. I'll happily let nature take care of that first. So very expensive process. So when you stop eating stuff that requires more digestive effort, you stop eating things that in really awful combinations that are super confusing for your digestive chemistry. So you eat food groups from you eat things from 3-4 different food groups all at the same time. They go down into your stomach. Your body has to release one of digestive chemistry, and it says, what on earth do I choose? Do I choose to release fat digesting chemistry? Do I choose to release carbohydrate digesting energy? Do I release protein digesting chemistry? What do I do with this mess? And a mess is what is guaranteed to happen if you go eat at, you know, a restaurant, any conventional restaurant. You're going to be eating what your body would call a mess because it just doesn't know how to deal with it. So in terms of energy expenditure, your body will be expending more, far more than a simple meal. So when you free up the energy expenditure, okay, in terms of how simple the diet is, then that translates in time to better quality sleep because your body is not laboring throughout your rest period in still digesting the meal that you had at friggin' 4 o'clock, because it was just so complicated. But if your 4 o'clock meal is, apples, right? Your body says, holy crap, that is an apple. I know exactly what that is. Let's deal with that immediately, get the energy we need, and be done with it. Okay, so you eat that apple, and now you go to sleep. Nothing's happening in your stomach, and your whole system constitutionally is afforded rest. So you get a better quality sleep. That's number one, because there's not as much work happening while you're sleeping. And number two, because there's less energy invested into digesting your food, what happens in time is that you end up needing slightly less sleep, especially depending on how early the meals end for that particular day. So it's a combination of the sleep that you get is of better quality, and the time spent sleeping starts to dip down a little bit, because you just don't need as much to reconstitute your energy. And with sleep, so people that are interested in meditation, in any spiritual practice, in calming the mind before bed, or even just the type of quality of sleep in terms of dreaming and whatnot, you probably might notice that all of these things really start to come online when the diet changes and the lifestyle changes, and then the mentality and the thinking, all these things happen simultaneously. But which is so important, of course, because we get energy from food, yes, but what we really get energy from is sleep. That is the true source of energy. Just try it. Try to replace sleep with food. It will not work. You will die, right? You cannot not sleep and just constantly eat celery throughout the evening and think this will work out for you. It will not happen. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you can not eat. You could go on a water fast, and you will survive and be very, very healthy for, you're familiar with True North, 40 days, 50 days, who knows? We don't have an upper limit to the amount of time we can fast. There have been people that fast for a year almost, and they're alive. That should be amazing, right? But they're getting plenty of rest and sleep. So obviously something's happening here. Something is happening in with the laws of nature that are sustaining the body in the absence of food. And it's important to recognize that, because it puts into perspective how important the quality of your sleep is. And so, of course, making these dietary changes starts to improve the quality of your sleep. And this is why you have this whole cascade of positive influences once you start making these changes.
Wow. That was great. How many hours of sleep do you like to get a night, or how many hours of sleep do you get a night?
That's a good question. And like I was saying earlier, it kind of does depend on how early I finish eating that day, right? So even if what I'm eating in the evening is very simple, so let's just say I have a honeydew melon an hour or so before bed, okay? I'll probably, because I can notice these differences like very, very distinctly. I'll probably sleep for 5 hours, 5 and a bit, right? If I don't, let's say if my last meal is at 3:30 or so, then I could sometimes have been surprised at how good I feel. Like I go to bed and I try to get to bed a little bit earlier. So that's something also important. I didn't touch on that yet, but going down with the sun as best as is possible, or as close as is possible, that has a way of really enhancing the quality of your sleep. You just start to align with the rhythm of the planet. I'm not going to go into it because it's just a different conversation. But so let's say I get to bed at a good time, reasonable time, and my last meal is fairly early in the morning. Oh my God, there are times when I've had 2 or 3 hours of sleep, woken up and like, oh yeah, all right, let's get going. I'm like, geez Christ, it's only 1 in the morning. Oh my God, what am I going to do with all this time? Oh no, right? So sometimes that happens. Yeah, it's really interesting gauging like how much sleep you need, and you really start to develop a good conscious relationship with what you do during the day and how much sleep it translates to. And there's like such a stark difference. Let's say I have a very a big salad, big vegetable meal. All of a sudden, even though it's a healthy meal, but all of a sudden something is different in terms of how much sleep I need after a day where I eat like that. It's just vegetables, but you become sensitive enough to notice these differences. So yes, on average, 6 hours of sleep is probably something typical. If I'm doing an experiment and I just gorging all day, right? And this has happened on good food, but there have been days where, yeah, sometimes it's just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm on holiday right now. I'm just going to watch a couple movies and just enjoy it. Like, yeah, I'm human. This stuff has happened. And on those days, I'll need more sleep, like conventional sleep, like 7-8 hours. So it's happened. But yeah, when I'm just sticking to the simplicity that I've been doing, then it's generally not as much.
Wow. Okay. So I just want to dive a little more into that as well, because I find that, like I said before, people usually emphasize these other things so much, like the diet and other habits, exercise, and then they diminish the sleep. And I sometimes worry that when people, let's say they go on a water fast and they're sleeping 1 hour a night, or they're doing a fast and they're only sleeping 2 or 3 hours, I feel as though a lot of the time, generally people are confusing the difference between kind of being like having this nervous type of fight or flight energy and actually feeling and being rested. And I completely trust in the way that you're speaking, that you know your body definitely well enough to say, hey, I feel rested and I feel good. But I think that it can be really confusing to other people. And I would worry initially for myself, even feeling good, I would wonder, am I getting all the processes done with my REM sleep and all this kind of stuff? And maybe I'm overthinking it, but if I'm sleeping 3 hours, even if I'm feeling good, I'm kind of worrying that my body isn't getting all of those metabolites cleaning up out of my brain and things along those lines. Do you ever worry about that kind of stuff, or you just feel so good and rested that you're kind of like, doesn't seem to affect me? Because I study.
No, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to add, on those days where I do wake up like really early and it's weird, like I just have really good energy. I'll do something. I'll be a bit productive. Maybe go do some editing. Maybe I'll do some reading if literally I just can't get to sleep. But I will try to get back to sleep. So on those days, I do try to get back to sleep. So it's not that my day starts at 2 a.m. Okay, so I should have mentioned that. Thank you.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I feel like even in nature, I feel as though when the sun is down, whether it's for our own protection from predators,
Absolutely.
whatever, it's safer to be resting for a decent amount of time. And I think that's built into our biology and we can't avoid that. So thank you for clarifying that as well.
No, absolutely. We live in modern society. If I didn't have lights and electricity and all this stuff, what the heck am I going to do at 2 a.m? It's pitch black. I'm not doing anything. Like you have no choice but to rest. Okay.
And like you said, depending upon the amount of exercise, like if we put ourselves back in the day, we would have been walking around, foraging, climbing. So we're going to be burning a lot more energy as well, so that when it is time to lay down, we don't have all this pent up energy from sitting on our ass all day. Not that you do that, but I don't know exactly what you do, but generally people are just doing that.
Right. Yeah. I would say, just to be safe, general rule of thumb, if you're up like super, super early and still dark out, force yourself to go back to bed. Just lie down, relax. You will be sleeping anyway. Sometimes it's a problem when people are fasting, because when you're fasting, you're going to have an abundance of energy. Like when I say abundance of energy, it's not that you're going to want to go and start doing all sorts of chin-ups and push-ups and
like run a marathon.
Yeah. No, that's not what I mean. You're going to have an internal kind of metabolic energy that can translate as you're very wakeful, don't need as much sleep, but you're not going to be like energized to run that marathon. Yeah. So when it's that, it becomes more important to just listen. I know that you've got some energy, but just lie down, just keep lying down, read. It can be difficult to do. I've experienced it many times, but you always, in the end, it's more important. And eventually you do get some sleep. You wake up and you're like, okay, yeah, it was a good idea or it was good that I didn't just start my day there, that I got a little bit of extra sleep.
Yeah. And
So
that balance
very,
is so, that balance is so delicate. Cause like you said, I completely agree. A lot of people are just stuffing their face all day with BS, and then they're sleeping until noon, feeling exhausted all day. I'm not talking about that kind of sleep. But then you have the pendulum swings, and it's like people are eating so little, or they're just intensely cleansing to where they're not sleeping. And I feel like obviously like somewhere in the middle where you feel rested and nourished at the same time, hydrated. That's like the perfect place to be, in my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this you'll figure this out. People figure this out. Just give it time, give it some familiarity. You start to learn, this has this impact on my sleep, this has that impact on my sleep. And you gauge it, and you find a way to make it work. But
cool.
Yeah, those are the general dynamics that you can expect when you start cleansing. And then you just adjust accordingly depending on the individual lifestyle. Right?
Awesome.
I love it. Individuals, the big takeaway for me. Let's approach this as individuals, because we are. I mean, we can all say that we're one, and that we're all part of like a bigger thing. And I agree. And at the same time, the individual is really how you address the needs properly.
Right.
Totally.
Right. Yeah.
MP.
It's always fun when someone will come, just chatting more about the individuality of the whole thing. And say, someone will ask, I don't know, I have this issue. What do I do? It's just like, okay, I need more information. I need more data. I can't effectively give you a recommendation if I know absolutely nothing about the conditions in your life that have created this response in your body, right?
You do coaching?
I do, yeah. I do consultations. Yeah, it's not, I don't advertise it very much. It's more like I include it in the description of all my YouTube videos, but I don't have like a website or a business set up. It's not that. It's just something that I offer to people if they want to get in touch with me one-on-one. I just kind of say, give me a shout, and then we'll set something up. So it's more, it's a very casual, very very human thing. Like it's not as much of a businessy setup, as at least right now. At least.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah. So it's funny because we always have to consider that. Right? Everyone's an individual. I've got all of this. I'll use the word baggage, but it's not baggage in the sense of like everything's negative. I just mean baggage in what you've taken on in your right. That's really all I mean. And so, knowing as much of that baggage and knowing what that was, it'll just help, right? Like I'm so sorry. I had one of my friends. I had one of my friends one day, and he was describing to me these difficulties that he was having while on a water fast. And so he's explaining all these troubles that he's having. And I can't for the life of me figure out what's wrong. I'm like, why is he having all of these really weird issues? And so it took a little bit of depth into the conversation to realize that what he meant by drinking was he was talking about alcohol while on a water fast. And I was like, I didn't even cross my mind that he would have been referring to drinking as alcoholic drinks while on a water fast, trying to 5-day water fast, having the occasional drink of alcohol. And so I was just like, I felt myself in front of the phone, just baffled. I'm like, what? I'm like, yeah, okay, of course you're having this trouble. It's alcohol, booze while you're on a water fast. My goodness, bro. So anyway,
come on, man.
Yeah. So sometimes people omit, willfully or not, very critical data, that would help in prescribing a detox. You can tell me all the dietary trends that you want, but then you fail to tell me that you're on pain medications or cholesterol lowering drugs or something. It's like, oh my God, geez, okay, right. This is the more pressing problem. Screw the diet stuff. We have to do something about these drugs first, right? That kind of thing.
Right. Cool. I think that's a good place to start wrapping it up, MP, if you want to do a little closing.
Yeah, totally. It's been awesome having you on here. I did have just one more question. I think it's great. You're a good looking guy. You look super healthy. I'm super impressed with everything that you do. You probably wake up in the morning, you're like, damn, I look good. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. What's up? But for real, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going forward?
Stop this nonsense. What keeps me motivated? What keeps me motivated is a couple of things. First of all, how good you feel, because again, it's very tangible. It's very, very, very noticeable and distinct how you feel and the changes. Like I know what I used to feel like when I had lived in a particular way beforehand.
Right.
But then I noticed all the changes. Okay, and it's like all of these changes, I couldn't for the life of me forget that this is how it is on this side of the equation, right? And then go back to how so just having experienced both sides, that is a very, very, very powerful motivator. Very, very, very powerful. To have, and I always mention it in a lot of the videos, just the clean channels of circulation, your respiratory channels being clean and free of mucus, never needing, I don't want to say never, because depending on what you eat, like let's say I eat spicy food. I tried a little thing of spicy food, right, a couple times, and I noticed like, holy crap, that clogs me up, right? My body really didn't like that, and so you get mucus and whatnot. Okay, so when I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing, Kleenex, tissues, colds, flus, these things are completely absent from my life. Completely absent. Like they're not even a thing ever. And they used to be a thing often. And noticing this stark contrast is I'd be very silly to lose sight of it. So that is something that keeps me motivated.
Awesome.
And of course, when I hear others give me feedback that they also have noticed these things in their lives, from hearing what I've said and relaying these natural facts and natural truths, and then they incorporate in their lives, and then hearing some of the messages I get are so unbelievably flattering and so heartfelt and so warming. It's just, oh my goodness, having that connection with people, that would motivate anybody to keep doing with me. A combination of those two.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're motivating me right now to just keep eating more fruit. I mean, I do eat a lot of fruit already. Actually, you can see my bananas back here. But I got bananas, apples, oranges.
Oh yeah, man after my own heart.
Yeah,
man after my
actually,
own
I have persimmons. I go to Costco, and Costco sometimes they'll have persimmons there, but usually they're hard as a rock, and they actually have some soft ones. So I was like, let's get it, let's try them out. Yes. So yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I just last weekend at the farmers market, they were selling a whole whack load of persimmons. Oh my God, it was like,
that's awesome.
Zeroed in on that stuff and just grabbed a whole bunch. Guys, if you're in the audience and you've never tried soft, very, very soft and ripe persimmon, you do not know what you're missing. My goodness.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Get your butt to the grocery store. It's unbelievable. Yeah. If you don't like persimmons in the ripe, ready to go state, where they're literally, if you touch them too hard, they'll just blow up flavor in your face. Like they're literally, you gotta try it anyhow.
For sure. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, that's all I have. AJ, any final thoughts? Any final questions?
When I view you, Eli, I feel as though that the reason why you have the motivation and all of that is really out of a labor of love. I don't feel as though you're doing this because you have to like force things to work and because of the results. I think that you really live this. You've looked at your life, you've looked at the weaknesses and potential issues, and you've addressed everything so that you can live in a way that is integral to you. And it speaks volumes about your character, and it speaks volumes about your energy. I think that I've been in this type of community since 2013, and I've seen a lot of things. People come and go. I've interacted with some of the greats, you would call them, like DTM and Brian Clement and stuff. And I have to say that you are on that tier, no questions asked, no doubt about it. You have such a presence, and people are really going to appreciate this interview. I appreciate you coming on here and having the interview with us. I know MP does as well. I'm looking forward to watching it because I love to see how we interacted. And at the same time, I'm hoping that you'll come back on at some point and we'll get to talk again, because I didn't get to any of the questions everyone wanted to but I'm sure we could always do like a rapid fire style, like just answering stuff. But this has been great, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I had so much fun, and you're such an interesting character.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you so much. That really means so much to me. And of course, anytime, you just let me know, and I'd be happy to come back and and do it again with you guys. I think I just want to say one last thing, because inevitably you're going to get people that are incredulous, like, this guy's not doing what he says he's doing. He's eating McDonald's, he's eating fried chicken, or whatever. You'll get all that. And so like I said, I'm a stuntman. I'm a professional stuntman, have been for many, many years. And so like I have a career. Like this has been my career for the last over a decade of my life. I didn't have any need to start up this channel and do this for people, right? There was no incentive for me to try to deceive anybody into believing what I was saying if I wasn't actually really, really, truly feeling this for myself. Because again, I had my career already. So this was it was just something that the obligation to share what I was experiencing in my life, it just took over. And that's what I'm trying to give out into the health community right now from that perspective. So
it shows.
I hope. Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eli. We really appreciate it. It's been awesome. It's been a lot of fun. Stay up. Be great. Always keep it 100, baby.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Eat fruit. Wow. Stay hungry.
Thanks, guys.